Hello, I'm Terry Gilliam with the Leaving California Groups. Today, I am honored to have Thomas Blackwell with us today. Thomas is an author, speaker, and coach, and he has written the book, The Liberty of Our Language Revealed. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, Terry. Honor to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I sure enjoyed meeting you several months ago at a great event, and I love the topic of what you spend your time talking about, and that's the power of language. And so, can you give us some background on yourself and tell us a little bit how you got into this environment?
Yeah, great. So always run my own businesses. Done that since been married 22 years now to my high school sweetheart. We knew we wanted to be entrepreneurs, and it's been our path. I mean, we couldn't even spell entrepreneur, to be honest, in the beginning, but we wanted to be entrepreneurs. And so just through running different businesses and things like that. Of course, the pride of my life is we have our four daughters. And so in doing that and being entrepreneurs, just learning a lot about life, as people do in any industry or vocation. But I learned the power of our words over time, and really came to a point through athletics and things like that, having the opportunity to play Division I sports and coach Division I tennis at university, and things that understanding that we bring about what we talk about and put into play, what our words say. And so I really have this radar. And you probably have this radar too, Terry, and it's called a BS radar. And when I say BS, probably you know what I mean. But just in case, I'm going to say it right here, right now. Look, that BS radar means, well, I can tell your BS, by the way, in 60 seconds or less. But BS stands for belief system. I know some people were thinking something different, but I can tell your belief system literally within 60 seconds or less by how you talk. I mean, interviewing people in one of my insurance practices, hundreds of people over the course of 8 years, like in 60 seconds or less, I could say, look, you're going to make it here or you're not. I can tell based on what you say. And it held true. And so I became fascinated and inundated with the power of our words, so much that I broke away from that industry, and people started contacting me to come and speak to their groups. Really happened in 2004. I was in front of 10,000 people, and they gave me 7 minutes to tell my story. We'd struggled quite a bit for 2 years, then had a boost, from 1 month to the next. And it seemed like immediate over the course of 4 months, but really it was a 2-year struggle. But they put me on stage and said, get on up here and tell your story. So I did in front of 10,000 people in 2004. And from that moment, people started calling me to come and speak to them, come and train them. We became top 5 in the company out of 10,000. We doubled our income for 5 years straight. And so people were interested in this sort of thing. So then they over and over, people say, well, Thomas, this is what you should do. You should just go around, speak and train people. And I said, well, that's not a job. I have to support my family, right? And I just was naive to the whole thing. So eventually I figured out that I could support my family that way, but they said, you got to write a book. And I thought, what would I write about? And I went back to my common theme that I would train people on. It was our language, Terry. So we talk about that when someone changes their language, literally they'll change their results, they'll change their environment, they'll change their life. And the results have been phenomenal. So as you held up that book, it took me about 10 years, to be honest, to write that book, The Liberty of Our Language Revealed. We talk about, but once they came out in 2018, it's just been super humbling and inspiring what's happened. I've spoken in 12 countries in 12 months in 2019. I've done tours in Spanish, the book's in English, Spanish, spoken in Vietnam 6 times. So anytime someone hears it, they recognize the power of it, and it just keeps propelling and propelling. So the only way that this message applies to anyone listening here is if they use words on a daily basis. If they don't, it's not going to apply to them. So what we found is it applies to everyone across the world. So it's been absolutely phenomenal. And now that people are meeting again, I'm having the opportunity to be in different cities every single week, speaking to people all over the country, and internationally is opening up again. So just really grateful for it and humbled to be the mouthpiece for it. So it's been super powerful, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to apply it to this and what you're doing, as we talked about. And I love the movement you're doing and the courage that you've had to to start the movement, and here you are leading a great group.
Well, thanks, Thomas. That's a great overview. I appreciate that. What I find in our groups is that there's a lot of unhappy people in California. I recently, 6 months ago, moved from California to Florida after 35 years there.
Mm-hmm.
I knew one day I was going to leave California. But there are a lot of people who struggle with that. As you know, I'm sure you've been there many times. It's a beautiful state. It's got beautiful coastal areas. It's got beautiful mountain ranges, but there is just so much that's causing people to be unhappy there, whether it's financial, political, whatever it is, not the right place I want to raise my family. Sure. How do you go from I'm not happy to actually getting to I am leaving and I don't care what the obstacles are? How do you speak your way through that?
Sure. Well, the first thing is a decision. And I loved California. I've been there, growing up in the Southwest. My life, it was our beaches. It was everything like that. I have lots of friends. I've spoken there many times, and I imagine we'll continue to do so. But if that's their decision, then make a decision. Ralph Waldo Emerson talked about that very word, decision. He said, when a decision is made, the universe conspires to make it happen. And having shared stages with lots of people, well-known people, I was backstage with a gentleman. His name is Steve Harvey, and he hosts TV shows and stuff like that. People know who I'm talking about. But Steve Harvey told me personally, he said, Thomas, most people don't get what they want because they just haven't decided yet. And so this word decision really, for me, and telling my story from going from struggling after 2 years to accelerating immensely over the next course of 4 months. I mean, like 6 figures in 4 months, just boom, is because I made a decision finally. Oftentimes people toe dip. Whether it's in life, business, relationships, they say, hey, I'm going to dip my toe in that thing. Oh, it's a little cold. You jump in and see if you drown, and then I'll think about jumping in. Right. But then if the goal is to leave California, in fact, if that is the vision, if that's what they're going for, Zig Ziglar said it great, who's a dear friend with his family. But Zig said, obstacles are the things we see when we take our eyes off the goal. Like obstacles are the things that actually show up when we're not focused on what we want. And so if you're finding there's obstacles, it's because you're not focused on the end game. And if the end game is to leave California, then focus on it and just go out there. It's like people say, hey man, I'm just waiting for my ship to come in, Terry. Like you've heard that before, right? When my ship comes in, oh boy, it's going to be great. Well, here's the thing. All of our ships are there already. It's just, they're a mile out. And people see them. Oh, there's the ship, right? And you got to swim to it, right? Well, I don't know. There might be sharks in there. Yeah, there might be sharks in there, but focus on the ship, right? Everybody's ship has come in. It's just a mile out. And anybody that's done it, just like you've swam out to it. You finally said, you know what? I'm going to jump in. And when that happens, obstacles cease to exist when your why is so big. And maybe I can talk about that. Like, is your why big enough to leave California? And also respecting this, that there's some people listening to this that may never leave California. I think we should talk about that too, which is fine. Like, that's their decision, and be happy with it. But the thing is, well, perhaps I can tell a story. When I was in high school, there was talking about obstacles and ceasing to exist and our whys. There was they had 5 boys in this family. And unfortunately, they were the brunt of who got made fun of. They were tall, they were skinny, they kind of kept to themselves, not real social family, but there's 5 boys and their dad was tall and lengthy. And I knew this family. And one particular day, all our perception about the family just completely shifted, because we had learned that the boy that was my age, they changed their own oil on their cars, and the dad was walking and talking the boy my age underneath the car to change the oil. So it was propped up on a jack, and they had one of these old huge station wagons. I mean, like Brady Bunch monster station wagons, And the dad's talking him through how to change the oil. So dad's standing on the outside, the boy's underneath, jacked up, and the jack broke. And the car plummeted down on top of his son. That was my age. And without even thinking, like without even in that moment, there were no obstacles. That dad, this tall, lengthy, skinny dad, went and halted this car up by himself to his son high enough to where he said, demanded that his son get out of the car, out from underneath the car, which he did, and saved his life. Now, Terry, any other day, if you went to the dad and said, hey, why don't you go see if you can pick up that car? You know what I mean? Why don't you just, I don't know that he could have done it, because he didn't have a why underneath that car. His why was so big to save his son's life. Obstacles cease to exist when our why is so big. And at the core, when your why is so big, there will be no obstacles. There'll be zero. And so I think that's where people need to focus in. Is my why big enough to leave California? Is it that important to me? Is it at the core to where I would do anything to leave? And it's that, is the why bigger than the fear and that sort of thing? So anyway, that's what surrounds what people will stay or go. And maybe their why is big enough they want to stay. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy. Thank you for that story, because I can see that people tend to look at the obstacles in their way until their why is big enough. Mm-hmm. Now, for those who are comfortable in California, they're not happy, but they're comfortable. It almost as if good is the enemy of great. And I've heard that before. And I think that they don't know what they don't know as far as what kind of life they could be living outside of California or in another place. And I know you don't escape your problems, right? You don't just say, okay, if we leave California, life will be perfect, because it's never perfect anywhere.
Right.
But how do you get past that, making that decision? Do you Ben Franklin it, or how do you actually get to the point to where you say, you know what, this was the deal killer. This is where I need to stop, thinking I can make it work. And we're moving forward. We're getting the heck out of here. How do you get past that?
I think it's internally with our own happiness. There's a saying out there that if when you arrive at becoming happy with nothing, you'll be happy with everything. And so this internal happiness, look, people have to decide, are they going to be at peace, whether in California or without? Because honestly, look, it's not going to be the place. Just like you said, like you have to learn to be at peace internally or externally, whether that's in the state or out of the state. And when you're at that peace, you have this, then you can, other factors of, look, it's time to get out. Now, if it's a hostile situation and whatever, you have to realize, hey, this is showing up for me right now, to recognize it's time to go. And I believe people have premonitions. people have these inside feelings of maybe it's time for a change, and you won't know until you go, type thing, or explore. And I've had lots of friends that have been there, that have left, but they've gone and explored. They explored the idea. It's like when you want to get a new car, or you just have the idea, well, go test drive the car, like go check it out, go, you know what I mean? Start taking an action that way and see how you feel. Well, we did the same thing. We lived in Arizona, and I would travel around and, speak all over the world and a lot of times in the country. And I would go to these places that had trees and seasons and stuff like that. It wasn't the arid desert. And I thought, well, why do I live in the desert? I started asking my wife, like, why do we, when there's trees and grass and stuff like that, these other places, like, why do we live in the desert? So we just started exploring the idea. We went and visited Virginia. So 13 years ago, we visited Virginia and said, this is what we want. Like, this feels good, and it took courage. It took a decision, but we did it. And everything formulated to where our family was closer and everything. So that reason became big for us, and we stuck with it. And it's been such a blessing. We were just talking about it last night, my wife and I, saying, you know what, we're grateful we had the courage to go and do it. Like, you don't know what's on the other side until you explore the other side, and And George Adair said it very brilliantly. He said, everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Everything.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
So,
Well, let's also talk about the environment that you put yourself in. There's a lot of people who get up, the first thing they do is turn on the news, or the last thing to do before they go to bed is they turn on the news. Can you tell people how they can put themselves in an environment with the proper input so that they're able to get past the weeds, if you will, of making decisions?
yeah, great point there. When we were first married, we'd always had it was a standard to have the newspaper in our home. Our parents had it, we had it, and so we got a subscription to the local newspaper. And I'd come home from work at night, and my wife was like under the covers in the bed. I couldn't find her in our apartment. Sweetheart, where are you? I'm in here. The world's going to collapse tonight. 2 people got murdered. This and that, and everything is terrible, because she was reading the newspaper and watching the news, and that was her reality. And I said, done. I mean, a couple months in our marriage, we canceled that subscription. We did not turn on the news, and we started creating our own reality. And so what happens with the news is they want to create and bind you to their reality, and they're going to put up things that sell, that are appealing. It's a fact. We all know this. If they put up warm and fluffy positive things all day, they lose millions of subscribers. But I don't know why it is, but like, we have this internal thing of, hey, we're drawn to negativity, that sort of thing. And so I completely shut those things out. So what I'm saying is, I live in a totally different world than other people. Like, I have to talk to my mom. My mom will call me. I'm in Georgia right now, and she'll call me and say, "Are you all okay? Is everything okay?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, Mom? That hurricane." Mom, what hurricane? Like, my family in the West will tell me what's going on in the East because they're listening to it or whatever. I said, "Mom, there's some rain, but we always get rain. You know what I mean? It's no big deal." So it's like, all I have to do is talk to somebody else for a few minutes, and they'll tell me all the terrible things that are going on in the world. But again, I shut those things out. And so my thoughts here is, what type of world do you want to live in? Like, I create my own reality. I live in a beautiful world. I have a loving family. People are wonderful around. But if I'm going to give my power up to other people to create my reality, that's what the news has done. And they've made $1 billion industry out of it. And that's why I shut it out. So I couldn't tell you what's going on totally, but I know that I live in a beautiful world now. And am I naive to it? No, I'm not. I'm not naive to what's happening, but whatever you focus on expands. So if you want joy, gladness, peace, happiness to expand, focus on those things. If you want all of the terrible things that are highlighted to go on your world, focus on that. And there's channels that will, that are happy to tell you about them. So really, try it. Do it. Change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's what Dr. Wayne Dyer said. So perhaps start, because the input has output, right? If you keep inputting negativity, it's going to filter through you, and you're going to say, wow, the lenses that I see this world is not happy, not good. Everything's going down. That's they want. They want you to tell you how many people got COVID today. They want to tell you you know what I mean? But like, how are you? Are you in a good state? Okay, we'll focus on that, right? So getting to the peace point. If you're going to rely on other sources to help you become peaceful, wrong way to look. Like, you have to find like, what's great about your life. You know what I mean? Focus on the gratitude and things in your world. So,
well, let's touch on gratitude. I think that in your book, you mentioned that start every day with gratitude. Most people aren't used to doing that, or a lot of people aren't used to doing that. Can you touch upon that, why that's important?
Absolutely. Well, there's a whole chapter, you're right, called The Language of Gratitude, Thankfulness, and Appreciation. And perhaps I can share a couple of things here with you, if you're all right with that. Let me share my screen. You see that there?
Yes.
Perfect. So that word, there it is. Look, this is a fun thing. Appreciation. A lot of people tie this thing to real estate. When a house goes up in value, it appreciates, right? And when it goes down in value, it depreciates. Well, I'd also say, like what adds value to a house? Well, how does it appreciate? It's simple. Well, you fix up the kitchen, you fix up the bathroom, you make the yard look nice, these sorts of things. So how does a person appreciate? And it's all in that word right there. How does a person become more valuable? If they will just appreciate more in their life, they will appreciate. Their value will go up. Does that make sense? So that's where the language of gratitude, thankfulness, and appreciation came in. And it's look, it is a whole language, Terry, and to some people, it's a foreign language. So I do this study inside of it. And one of the studies was on a structure and a piece called Biosphere 2. Now, this is what we learned from Biosphere 2. This is out in Tucson, Arizona, so not too far from California there. And maybe some people have seen it, but what happened is these engineers, scientists put together this phenomenal facility to where a plant, a tree, fruits, vegetables could grow at an astronomical rate. I mean, we're talking weeks, because everything was perfect. The environment was perfect. The humidity was perfect. The water levels, the sunlight, everything was perfect. So literally, boom, trees and stuff could just shoot up really fast. So much that 8 scientists entered into this closed-in building for 2 years and did not leave. And they lived off the land in the building in the middle of the desert. So pretty phenomenal stuff. Now, why am I telling you this? It's because what happened with those trees was like one day to the next, trees started toppling over, plants started dying. They could not figure it out fast enough to where they had to shut the whole thing down. I mean, just boom. And they're like, what is going on? Everything was perfect. How is this possible? Well, the answer became that it was too perfect, meaning that those trees could not survive without this right here. And if you see the image there, what that represents is adverse conditions. See, a tree naturally produces a thing in and only in adverse conditions called reaction wood or stress wood. And without it, they literally cannot survive without these adverse conditions. So there's no trees, Terry, in its right state that ever curses the wind, ever. It's grateful for it. It says, thank you. It says, I know I need this to actually survive and be stronger. And without you, I go away. And so what can we learn from the trees? People have already thought about it, is, can I be grateful for the adverse conditions in my life? Literally, can I be grateful for everything that's going on, recognizing that I too need this to create my own reaction wood and stress wood in a sense. And so the quarantining, I mean, we just debunked quarantining, didn't we? Because we're saying, right? I mean, hey, everything's perfect, never leave. And we've had more issues data-wise based on quarantining in families and homes because we have not interacted, because we have not gone out and said, oh, just lock yourself up. And it has been a falsified error to our human status. You know what I mean? So essentially, one, can you be grateful for everything in your life? And there's a whole science and there's whole benefits behind this state of gratitude. In fact, a neurologist at UCLA there in California did a study, and what he proved is that this power of gratitude, he had students that kept gratitude journals, and then he had kids that kept pessimistic journals, and he watched their studies and their mindsets and their shift and their emotions. Kids became depressed on the pessimist side, and kids that were positive performed amazingly. And then he literally proved, he says, look, a person cannot be depressed and grateful at the same time. Like a depressed person, if put it in words, has just forgotten what they're grateful for. And so whatever you focus on, like, can you be grateful for everything that comes into life? And when you do that, you'll sleep better, anxiousness goes away. He's proven all these things. And depression cannot be in the same space. So literally, I'll have people, when I'm speaking to them, I'll say, write down 5 to 10 things you're grateful for right now, in 60 seconds. And it can literally snatch people out of a point of depression, snap them out of fear, snap them out of anxiousness when they focus on what they're grateful for. And so I've had, I can tell you numerous stories with this. Perhaps I'll just share one quick one. I have a friend who has, she has panic attacks, and I didn't know this about her, but she got my book and she read it, and she told me this firsthand. So she had these panic attacks, and now she has 10 siblings. Now, I don't think that's the reason she has panic attacks, but, and she has 7 kids, and I don't think that's the reason she has panic attacks, but but nonetheless, she has these. And so every single year, these 10 siblings and their spouses and their kids would all get together for a family reunion. If you can imagine that, the size of that awesome event. And she would have a panic attack on the way to the airport. It was about a 2-hour drive to the airport. And they would pull over at the exact same spot every single year so she could have a panic attack, literally. And then she'd get to the reunion, and all of her siblings, her father and mother, just knew that she was going to have a panic attack. And so they just planned on it. And then she read the book. And so now they're on the way. And this particular chapter, the language of thankfulness, appreciation, and gratitude, and they're on their way. And her husband is wondering what's going on, because she's in this beautiful state of happiness. She's playing with the kids, stuff like that, on their way to the airport. And by the way, she got a panic attack on the plane too. I mean, she was terrified of it. And they're getting to the spot where she typically has a panic attack, and he pulls over because she's not having a panic attack. Like he's having a panic attack that she's not having a panic attack. You know what I mean? And and he says, "Sweetheart, what's going on?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, You're totally fine. You're happy right now. What is going on?" She said, oh no. I just decided to be grateful for planes. I decided to be grateful that we didn't have to drive our entire family across the country. I decided to be grateful that we have the money to put all 9 of us on a plane every year. I decided to be grateful that I have a family that gets together every year. He said, "That's it?" She said, "Yeah, that's it." So then she gets to the reunion. Everybody's expecting her to have a panic attack. And her dad comes to her and says, "Look, what is going on? Why are you not having what did the doctor give you? Like, what are you taking?" And like, he's having a panic attack that she's not. It was just so interesting. And he says, "No, Dad, it's because of this book." And she showed him, the dad, my book. And he says, I learned it from here to be grateful. And he said, "Give me that book." So the dad reads the book in the weekend. He calls me. He goes, "Give me 10 books for all my kids." And now I'm true story. Now I'm speaking at their family reunion. So it's, this happens all the time. But I literally just 2 weeks ago, I had a psychiatrist, call me from Morgantown, West Virginia. And he said, "One of my patients is reading your book. I have no idea who these people are, and it's been the only thing that seems to snap her out of what she's been dealing with." So now he prescribes chapters to her for my book. And he says, "Are you okay if I prescribe your book to all of my patients?"
Wow.
And so stuff like that happens. I could go on, but it's this power. The point is the power of gratitude. If you're going to stay in California, be grateful for it. Find the gratitude and be at peace. If you're going to leave, we'll be grateful for it and get out. But either way, that will be your power. So.
Wow, that is something. So talk about that. I think you're also, not only do you achieve your goals and what you want to accomplish in your life through your words, but obviously it also affects your health. So can you speak to the health benefits of being on the right side of how you think and how you talk?
Absolutely. Well, we talk about, right, already. So one, just talking about the gratitude, people, if I said, "Who wants to be anxious? Raise your hand." Nobody would raise their hand. "Who wants to be depressed?" Nobody would raise their hand. So it counteracts those two. It's like light and darkness, Terry. They can't exist in the same space, right? So when I'm in a state of gratitude, when I'm grateful for everything, it's proven that I will sleep better. Now, if people just slept better, think about that. Got a good restful night's sleep, the body could rejuvenate, it could heal. The body's a phenomenal thing. It could do that. And so then, of course, I don't have those negative things like depression and anxiety in my life because I'm gratitude. But that's that's just one aspect of it, but I also speak. How do I speak to each other? Just so our words have power. Like there's physical power to our words. Okay. So if I say, I'm so sick and tired of the news always telling me this or that. I'm so sick and tired of a governor that every time he sneezes, a law changes or something like that, right? And this is the common language. Well, what people may not realize is that goes into and becomes a reality. It's like the captain in a crew. So if I say I'm sick and tired, my body goes, okay, we'll go make that happen. So let me explain it this way. The captain in the crew, a captain of a ship, can say to the crew, sail towards the promised land. And the crew responds with this, aye, aye, captain. There's zero disobedience. There's no filter. Some don't say, I don't know if I want to sail towards the promised land today. They're the crew. They're not the captain. That's why they're on the ship. They're going to go to work to make that happen. The crew inadvertently could say, crew, sink this ship. And the crew, the same, will respond, Terry, aye, captain. And they will go to work to make that happen. There is no filter. There's no disobedience. Well, see, we command our crews that way. People that show up on Monday say, it's Monday again. Nothing great ever happens on Monday, right? And your crew just said, aye, captain. We'll go to make that happen for you. Another guy shows up on Monday and says, I love Mondays. Great things always happen on Mondays. I'm always meeting great people. And the crew says, aye, captain. Like I have companies and people all over the world that post after they hear me talk, aye, captain, by their computers, in their offices, in their homes, because they recognize they are the captain of their ships. I mean, we were just a couple of years ago, we were in St. Martin down in the Caribbean. And, in these tropical places, the weather can change. And Florida has that too, right? The weather can change fast and all of a sudden it could be stormy and whatever. It's awesome. Well, the weather's starting to change. And he says, the weather's changing. I always get sick when the weather changes. And I said, aye, captain. Within 24 hours, he was bedridden and was sick. Literally. And I said, I love it when the weather changes. I get adrenaline. I want to play sports. I'm just excited when the weather changes. I had a great time. But literally, you can throw yourself because the crew, your body, the universe, everything around you literally obeys what we say. And there's a chapter in the book called The Physical Power of Our Words. And I can go deep into that if you wanted to, but our words create things. They create everything around us.
And that's biblical, right? The Bible talks a lot about the words we speak and how we say them. Can you touch upon that for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that, because that's a great point. Because in the book, look, what I set out to do without even realize I was setting out to do it is that I was proving that we bring about what we talk about, prove it physically, prove it neurologically, prove it scientifically, prove it emotionally, and prove it even spiritually. Because, I believe we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so look, in the beginning, let's use the Bible as a textbook. It's the greatest selling book of all time. Give it its credit, right? In the beginning, it says this whole world created in the book of Genesis by what? By a supreme being, but by the power of his word. Like he created everything, every aspect, in 6 days by the power of his word. And then a little bit later, it says we are created in the image of that supreme being, God, by the, in his image. And so what has happened? What's the correlation? Very simply, he has given us, because we're in his image, to create our worlds, Terry, by the power of our words. We create our own worlds by what we say. It's like the difference between a winner and a loser. It's so small, but it's this: winners say they can, losers say they can't. And it's that easy. Can you or can't you? And it's by what you say, right? And so I literally proved that physically in the book, that everything, our beings and everything around us will obey what we're saying. So, but it's divine. Like we've been given that chance to create by the power of our words. Our words become our wands. Like if we had a magic wand, like our words become our wands. Like, here you go. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. And so consciousness is what we're talking about here, right? Help people become conscious of whatever their decision is or whatever they want their world to look like, speak to it that way. Oh, these things are so rough and everything going bad and whatever. And it's Captain, Captain versus, you know what? Let's recognize where we're at. Let's recognize the change we want. And regardless of whether the governor says this or not in the state of California, my life is beautiful. Things are like live in a beautiful state. You will decide that. Then if you make the decision based on your why that you want to leave, well, leave and be happy there too. You know what I mean? But, oftentimes, geography doesn't change everything for you. Like the power is, can you learn to be happy right now? That's where people should focus. Can you learn to be happy right now in the state they're in? And then as they decide to move, if that's their case, then be happy with that too. And live in a beautiful state regardless. You know what I mean? Because then they may always be looking for the next thing. Like that's the solid answer to leave California, which there's a lot of data to prove that. Will you find more peace and stuff like that outside? Absolutely. That's why we're talking about it. You know what I mean? That should be a logical thing to say, hey, there's some reasons why we should definitely consider this, but look internally. And I believe when you become at peace in the state of California, you'll have more power to leave if that's what you decide to do.
Yeah, it's not like we live in a communist country. In China, I don't have the ability to move anywhere I want to, whenever I want to. But we live in the greatest country in the history of mankind.
Right.
The only obstacles we put in our way are self-imposed. They're not put on us by the government. That there isn't someone at the border of California and Nevada saying, sorry, or your papers, please, or right. Whatever. You have absolute autonomy to move wherever you want to. And again, I love what you're saying. If you're going to stay, be happy. If you're going to leave, be happy. Yeah. And whatever you do, though, make a decision and move forward with that. One thing I'd love to also, just for the benefit of people not even looking to leave or whatever, I'd like for you to take a few minutes just to talk about forgiving others, because there's a lot of people who carry a lot of that weight on their shoulders of not forgiving others. And can you talk about that and how it's important to go through that process too?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting enough, when I set out to write this book, it was very divinely guided. And anytime I speak, anytime I write, I pray. That's just what I do. And I recognize that I'm the messenger type thing. So when I was writing the book and I was praying over what was next, I felt like I should write a chapter on the liberating language of forgiveness. And I thought, but this is a language book. Why would I talk about forgiveness? But then I went with it, and it has been such a powerful piece to people's healing and direction and happiness. And so forgiveness is an interesting thing. It can literally hold us back from what's next and progression. If you going back to the Bible, the Lord says, in order for us to be forgiven by Him and the divine, we must forgive others. And I would say, put it in direct languages, He will not forgive us. He cannot forgive us. Like, we cannot be forgiven unless we forgive others. And there was a point in our transitioning of businesses where it wasn't clicking. In fact, like that 2 years of struggle. And part of it is because we were holding on to a wedge in our life. And I say a wedge is something that we did not forgive a previous business partner for. We felt like they had wronged us. If you looked at it, like some terrible things that they did, and we saw it that way, like this crutch, this wedge inside of us, like they wronged us. They've never approached us. They should be calling us and saying they're sorry, which they never did. And in their mind, maybe they didn't think they did wrong. Yeah, I mean, I didn't, but that wasn't where the halting of progression was. It was our inability to forgive them. So one day, my wife and I were talking about it. She says, Thomas, I really feel like I need to call our previous business owner's spouse and just say, I'm sorry for harboring these ill feelings around you. and towards you. And she did. And they should have been saying sorry to us. Look, we all have situations like this. Look, Terry, I've known your life. You have situations like this, right? Where people should be calling you and maybe they haven't, right? But you must forgive. And because of that, because she forgave her or asked for her forgiveness and let these things go, it's like, then that's our business just went boom. And our, more than that, that was the monetary aspect of it, but our inner peace was, we're good, right? So I say, who do you need to forgive right now? And what, because if there's a wedged inside of a tree or a branch and it grows over, eventually some little adverse condition will split that tree right in half if there's a wedge left inside of there. And is there wedges on our hearts, right? Are there little things? And it's the most freeing thing, really, to forgive all things. So can we see situations on TV and going on, and can we just say, I forgive that? Like, I see the negativity, but can you just say, I forgive that? You know, because if we harbor it, like, and then we have these political party things, like I can't be talking to them because they believe this or they voted for them. Like, seriously, like, just say, I forgive all, and let's be humans, right? Let's be humankind. Let's be mankind. Respect people's opinion, and if they say something treacherous, forgive it that fast. There was a gal, she was 105 years young, and I was visiting my grandpa who was 97 in a retirement home. What do you call those things? They're active retirement community, literally, but these people are in their high 90s, and she was 105. And I was sitting down to dinner with her. Her name is Helen. And I said, Helen, what's the secret? Like, you got to tell me, what's the secret? How do you're 105. You're the eldest lady in this whole facility. And what's the secret? And the secret to what? I said, the secret to living such a long and happy life. Like, you're 105. You're the only one who has authority to tell us that. Her answer surprised me. She said, Thomas, many, 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 many years ago, I mean, she's lived over a century. She said, I decided to forgive people quickly. Essentially, she said, I decided not to get mad or angry at people or situations. I decided to frankly forgive them very quickly and not harbor any wedges in my life. And I said, that's the reason? She says, yes. I'm free from all those stains or whatever you want to call them. And so I said, well, do you think that when people harbor ill feelings towards a situation or a political party, whatever, that it's like starting a fire inside their own body and not dousing it? So yeah, I believe it's eating at people and literally can be taking years off their life. That was her answer. Like, she understood this correlation of forgiveness and living happy and along, and her body was free from these things, because it can cause sickness, man. It can cause illness, not forgiving other people, and it eats at the person who doesn't forgive. And so that's why there's a chapter on there, and it's been a lot of healing for a lot of people, including myself. So
I heard someone once say that bitterness and resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Beautifully said. It's so true, right?
Yeah. So thank you for that. Those are great words of wisdom, because we don't just want to, we don't want to live great lives. We want to live quality lives also. We want to live a life of living a life of gratitude, living a life of forgiving other people. And I'm preaching to the choir, believe me. Mm-hmm. But you can go through life, and at the end, you're going to say, gosh, I'm so thankful I had all that bitterness and resentment in my life. No, you're going to say, thankfully, I lived a great life. I did what I wanted to do, and did my best, right? And then, stand before our Maker and hear those words that we want to hear. So thank you for that, Thomas. Is there anything you want to add before we end our time together?
Yeah, just to build on that, it's been a privilege to be with you. Are you bitter or are you better? Really, you're better, and when we forgive, we're liberated from these things. So there it is. So really, I feel like our talk today is, look, find your peace and find your happiness. And if you decide to go, then go, and know that because of that decision, you'll be blessed. It'll work out. Everything always works out for our good. Like, it always works out for our good, right? And that's biblical too, Romans 8:28. So just trust that's your path to go. And everything that happens will happen for you along the way. I mean, we live on the road right now. I've lived in 95 homes in 5 years. I mean, we live in vacation homes, literally. Like, we live on this family adventure. I'm in a vacation home right now on the lake in Georgia. And so it's such a beautiful country. Like, we can live anywhere. And it's just been absolutely amazing. People are amazing, but that's the lenses I see through. That's what I wake up to. So maybe we can just put on a new set of lenses and say, look, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, be at peace. And that would be the message today. And if you feel prompted to go, know that that's prompting from a good place. So if it's a prompting from the heart, but if it's does fear have a factor? If you let it, you know what I mean? Let fear be information type thing, but not a driving force. We're not in East Berlin right now. You know what I mean? But the fact is, are there enough reasons and why you feel like, it's time? And if you have that, then take courage and do it and know that everything will work out for your good. That would be my message.
Awesome. Well, Thomas, tell us how people can get this book. I think everyone should go on Amazon or wherever. Tell us how they can get it, and tell us about your website and how they can reach out to you if they want to talk to you. Thank
you for that. I would be honored. Certainly on Amazon, look, ebook, whatever. It's on Audible. People say, I don't like to read. I'll read it to you. Like I read in a professional studio. It's on Audible, iTunes, that sort of thing. But if you want a signed copy, and I put it's better priced on my website. You want me to sign your personal copy? I'd be happy to do that. Just go to my website, thomasblackwellspeak.com. Again, thomasblackwellspeak.com. If you Google search or search engine on Thomas Blackwell, I'll be, amongst the first up there on my website. But go on, get a book, and I'd be happy to sign that for you. People buy these things by the cases, literally, because after listen, they say, gosh, I mean, I need to spread this out to my whole environment, right? And listen to that. So I'm happy to sign as many as you'd like. For that, also on my website, people, after hearing me talk, they say, Thomas, I've had a lifetime of growing up in a factory where the language has been negative, or right. How am I supposed to change all this? And for one, have mercy on the factory you grew up in. Have mercy on the factory that you grew up in. They were doing their best, and forgive. There probably needs to happen some forgiveness inside of that realm. But also, I tell people this isn't the flavor of the month. They can go on my website and they can sign up for my free weekly inspirational language tips. I know you're on them, Terry, but literally I will send you every single Monday a free weekly inspirational language tip. I wrote 101 of these things, little synopsises of how people can change their language and change their life. So you'll get 2 years of them, and then you'll come back for the review, and that you're ready to do at that time. So I will help you. I will stay with you, but you can sign up for those free weekly inspirational language tips on my website, thomasblackwellspeak.com. I look forward to staying in touch and going from there. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks again, Thomas. The liberty of our language revealed. And boy, is that so true. Thank you again, Thomas. It's been great talking to you, great meeting you and getting to know you better. And I look forward to future talks. We'll talk again.
Definitely. Have a blessed day, Terry. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So long.